Hi, my name is Josie Carabinos, and I'll be doing my presentation on Alzheimer's disease. What is Alzheimer's disease? Well, it's determined by a loss in cognitive functions and needing help in daily activities of living. It's the loss of the neurons in the synapse. Underlying causes still to this day are still unsure, but aging and genetics definitely play a part. Down below, you could see a picture attached. There's normal on the left. On the right, there's someone diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And you see the neurons being transmitted into the synaptic cleft here on the left and binding to the receptors, no problem. While on the right, you see the neurotransmitters being lost in the synaptic cleft and having trouble binding onto the receptors. Prevalence. Well, how common even is Alzheimer's disease? Well, there's about 24 million cases in the world, 5.5 million cases alone just in the United States. Some symptoms can include memory loss, confusion, trouble with motor skills, that being fine motor skills, gross motor skills, misplacing things, balance is definitely a huge symptom. Which brings me to the stages of Alzheimer's disease. Stage 1, ranging from mild to stage 7, very severe. Stage 1, there's no impairment during this stage. Alzheimer's is not detectable and no memory problems or other symptoms. Stage 2 being very mild decline. Stage 3 is a mild decline. Stage 4 is a moderate decline. Stage 5 is defined as moderately severe decline. Stage 6, severe decline. And stage 7, very severe decline. And I found this picture on Google. I thought it was very, very helpful. It shows the progression through all 7 of the stages. So stage 1, we'll go through this real quick. Stage 1, there's no impairment. Everything seems to be normal. No treatment necessary. Stage 2, very mild decline. No noticeable cognitive decline. You want to go see your doctor regularly. Stage 3, mild decline. You begin to notice a change and a decline in functioning. Now will be a good time for retirement, it says, and to get legal financial concerns in order. And let me tell you, being prepared is always the best thing that you could do. You want to prepare as early as you can, especially for a disease like this. Moderate decline is stage 4, where the symptoms are very clear and you can tell, things are going wrong, some things are being misspoken, stuff like that. Stage 5 is a moderate severe decline. This is when you want to have someone being supervised almost, as much as you can. Stage 6, severe decline. This is when they're going to need constant supervision. They might start wandering off, and this is when they require assistance or reminders. Stage 7 is the very severe decline. This is when they're almost near death. They're at a loss of movement. They need fed. They can't stand up. They can't shower. The loss of ability to respond to their environment or communicate is what it says. So those are the 7 stages. How is it diagnosed? Well, doctors use many tests of memory, problem solving, attention tests, counting tests, blood and urine tests, brain scans, and once they're diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, doctors may refer you to a specialist. Could be a neurologist, could be a neuropsychologist, could be geriatricians, someone who can further help educate you on what's going to happen and prepare you and just let you know, what's going to go on. Now, in the left, you see a healthy brain, and in the right, you see a severe Alzheimer's brain. You can tell that, even in these pictures on the right, the ventricles open up, right here due to shrinking of the gyrus and the sulcus, which are these guys right in the middle. There is the frontal, the occipital, the temporal, and the parietal, all are deteriorating, slowly shrinking, and the cerebral cortex and white matter is the cerebral cortex is almost like the outlining, and the white matter is almost the inner part, is deteriorating, meaning connections are being lost. How exercise affects Alzheimer's? Well, exercise is necessary and it could delay the process of Alzheimer's. And notice I said delay. I did not say cure, as there is no cure for Alzheimer's. Exercise can help blood flow to the brain. By exercising just 4 to 5 times a week, you have a lower risk of being even diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it improves your thinking. Aerobic activities for Alzheimer's are very, very beneficial. How Alzheimer's affects the exercise response? Well, balance is greatly affected. Like I said before, you have, balance is one of the biggest symptoms, being off balance. Depending on which stage you're in, supervision, you normally have low diastolic, high systolic blood pressure, and abnormal slow resting heart rate, also known as bradycardia. Now, this is bradycardia happens when you're diagnosed with Alzheimer's and you start taking the medication, is when you start getting a slow resting heart rate, which brings me to my next slide, the medications. As I said before, there's no cure for Alzheimer's. Medications include memetine and cholinesterase inhibitors. In my case study that I typed up, I said, Mr. K is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. He does not have any family history that he knows of the disease. He has a wife and a grandfather of 9 kids, as well as a father of 3. He was a wrestling state champ back in high school and wrestled in college as a D1 athlete. He is currently 65 years old and is in the 2nd stage of Alzheimer's. His risk stratification is moderate, which includes, he had bypass surgery in 2005, type 1 diabetes, and he was diagnosed with arthritis. His medications include insulin for the diabetes, NSAIDs, and ACE inhibitors for the bypass surgery. His risk group is moderate, so you want to keep a close eye on him during exercising. His goals are to maintain a healthy lifestyle and to slow the progression down of his Alzheimer's disease to watch his grandkids grow up. Special considerations, I said, you want to monitor his blood sugar for taking the insulin. You don't want it to be too high. You don't want it to be too low. It could be very, very, very dangerous. Being diagnosed with diabetes. Monitoring blood pressure because of the ACE inhibitors. He's a giant risk for falling. That could be very, very dangerous. And monitoring his heart rate, and you want to get oxygen levels, just for a baseline. The exercise testing I would have him do a stationary bike test. YMCA is probably the best, something low to moderate intensity, something where you can measure his heart rate, his blood pressure, his blood sugar. I would have him do a treadmill test, maybe something as easy as the Bruce protocol. he could stop whenever, Balance test could include the balance beam test, a stork test, and a unipedial stance test. As well as flexibility could include sit and reach. As I said, just to get a normal baseline, it's important. His prescription, I would prescribe daily walking for 20 to 25 minutes with someone or with a walker, preferably with someone, just because Alzheimer's, you are more inclined to forgetting, where you're at, who you are, and it would just be more beneficial and more safe if you could just walk with someone, depending also what stage they're in. I would also prescribe stationary biking at low to moderate intensity for 20 to 30 minutes, 4 times a week. This would be very beneficial. As I said, to do aerobic activity, get his brain working, blood flow into the brain. Doing ADLs, activities of daily living, and monitoring with progression will help, determining the progression in the 7 stages of the disease. So, for example, if he were to 1 week, he's able to tie his shoes, get down, then put his shoes on, tie them, and let's say in 4 weeks from now he cannot. You want to monitor those, and you want to keep up to date of what stages that he's entering and leaving, and you want to be prepared. I also included static sustained stretching daily for 15 minutes. That includes, reaching up, go down to one, hold on to one side, go down to the other side, go down to the middle with your feet spread apart, shoulder width. This will help his, sustain a range of motion and flexibility, just so even when he's walking or biking or doing any ADLs, he will not get hurt. You want to keep that flexibility and range of motion in the perfect place. Overall, I said it's important to learn about Alzheimer's disease because as an exercise science major, you will come across it sometime in your profession or even in your personal life. If it's your grandparents, your own parents, maybe even yourself, your friends, anyone in your family, you want to stay up to date with it, and it's important to stay educated on it. It's growing more and more every year. You also want to be able to help someone when coming across this in your profession. That also goes along with staying educated on it. You don't want to have someone come into or you come into the occupational, practice or physical therapy practice, and you have no idea what exercises to do or, what kind of disease it is and how it affects someone, because you could hurt someone very severely. So it's important to stay educated on these types of diseases. And this is my reference. Thank you so much for listening.